Hello, my name is Derek Cross. I am a student at Colorado State University Global Campus within the Ops 510 Operations Management course under the instruction of Dr. Melinda Hollingshed. This presentation is a discussion of forecasting within operations management and includes analysis of a simulated case study. Let's discuss the purpose and structure of this presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to explore forecasting as it relates to operations management and analyze a simulated case study. We will begin by defining what forecasting is within the context of operations management and discuss why it is important for organizations. We will then look at a brief overview of the simulation and its goal before discussing the model and strategy used in the simulated forecasts. We will then perform an in-depth analysis of the methods and techniques used throughout the simulation and compare the results to the stated goal before looking at lessons learned throughout the simulation and the conclusions we can draw about forecasting and operations management as a result. First, we need to answer the following question. What is forecasting? In their book, Operations Management, Sustainability and Supply Chain Management, Heiser et al. Define forecasting as the art and science of predicting future events. Forecasting can be quantitative or qualitative in nature. Quantitative forecasting means utilizing historical data to develop a mathematical model of future data. For example, using sales data from the last 12 months to predict demand for the next fiscal quarter. In contrast, qualitative forecasting means using subjective or intuitive decision-making, usually relying on the judgment of experts. For example, using a Salesforce composite of regional sales projections to create the national forecast is a qualitative approach to forecasting. However, most organizations use both quantitative and qualitative forecasting in combination with each other. Historical data will be used to develop a mathematical model, and the results of this model will be adjusted by an expert after an analysis of market conditions that the mathematical model may not have considered. Forecasting is an essential part of developing an effective plan for both the short and long term of an organization. Forecasting impacts three major areas of business, the first being supply chain management. Accurate forecasting aids in developing good supplier relations and provides advantages in cost and speed to market. The second area is human resources. Accurate forecasts are vital in the hiring and training of new employees, which has a direct effect on workforce quality. The final area is production capacity, where poor forecasting can result in shortages or excesses. Shortages can drive customers away, and excess can lead to skyrocketing production costs for materials that do not have a buyer. Let's take a brief look at the simulated case study. In this simulation, we were asked to act as a consultant, providing demand forecasts to a gas station that serves three fuel types: regular, mid-grade, and premium. We were to provide these forecasts over a period of 2 years. To begin, we were given 6 months of historical sales data by fuel type, monthly demand factors for each month of the year, and the average ratio of fuel type demand. During the simulation, external influencing factors would often arise that required adjustment to the forecast. These were events like production shortages, political instability in major oil exporting countries, and regulatory changes that would change trade tariffs or sales volume. The goal of the simulation was to account for all of these factors and provide accurate monthly forecasts with low mean absolute percentage error. In the simulated case study, an error of less than 25% would guarantee a contract renewal, and an error of less than 10% would result in an additional $10,000 bonus. In order to accomplish this goal, let's take a look at the model and strategy used to create the monthly forecasts. While analyzing the historical data, we found that the gallons of fuel purchased acted as a function of the monthly demand factor. According to a 2023 study done by Wicarenda et al., simple linear regression is a statistical method that tests the extent of the causal relationship between the causal factor variable and the effect variable. We can therefore utilize a linear regression model based on the monthly demand factor to predict the future demand. In our case, the causal variable will be the monthly demand factor, and the effect variable will be the gallons of fuel purchased. A worked out example of this linear regression model can be found in Appendix A. The linear regression model alone is not enough to make accurate monthly forecasts, so let's look at a few other methods and techniques used throughout the forecasting process. Using a linear regression model based on all available historical data seems like a good idea on the surface, but for products that have elastic demand throughout the year, this can create inaccuracies. We decided to only use the data from the most recent 6-month period to create a rolling model of demand to prevent old data from muddying the integrity of the most recently available data. To develop our model, we created a scatter plot of the data of interest and used Excel to find the line of best fit. The formula of this line can then be used as our linear regression model for the next monthly forecast. To reduce the workload, we used data for only the regular fuel type, then used the provided ratios to calculate demand for the mid-grade and premium fuel types. One technique used throughout the simulation was to monitor the R-squared value of the line of best fit. This R-squared value represents how well the linear equation fits the scatterplot data. High values at 0.9 and above indicate the model is very accurate for the given data, and in those cases we knew we could rely on the modeled forecast to provide accurate results. In contrast, lower values in the 0.7 to 0.85 range indicate that the equation is likely to be a less accurate description of the data, and we may need to rely more on qualitative adjustments to the forecast in order to achieve better accuracy. Finally, the presence of external influencing factors meant that the purely quantitative forecast was ignoring variables that may not be quantifiable, but that still impacted the actual demand. To compensate for this, we needed to make qualitative adjustments to the forecast. For example, if there was a time of political instability that impacted the availability of crude oil, fuel prices would be expected to increase, and therefore the actual demand would likely be less than the forecasted quantity. On the other hand, if there was a trade agreement that introduced a new supply of crude oil, fuel prices would be expected to decrease, and therefore demand would likely be greater than the forecasted quantity. So by incorporating all of this information into our monthly forecast, how well did we perform over the 2-year period? As a reminder, the goal of the simulation was to finish the 2-year period with under 25% error for a contract renewal, or under 10% error for an additional $10,000 bonus. We finished the time period with an error of 3.13%, surpassing expectations for the contract. Our rolling linear regression model and combined quantitative and qualitative approach were a success, earning us both a contract renewal and an additional $10,000 bonus. As a note, we were most accurate within the first 12 months of the forecast. We did not recalculate the monthly demand factors or fuel type ratios during the simulation, and in hindsight, that may have been the cause of the increased error seen in the second year of forecasting. An expanded set of simulation results can be found in Appendix B. What lessons can we draw from this simulation and the results? The first lesson is that forecasts cannot rely on purely quantitative data. It is impossible to quantify all influencing factors and implement them into a reliable mathematical model. Forecasts should have some level of qualitative adjustments performed by experts. The second lesson is that forecasts can only be as good as the data used as the inputs. If bad data goes into the model, the forecasts that result cannot be trusted. In addition to this, not all factors of a model are static. Analysts must continuously monitor and revise the model to ensure the greatest accuracy. The final lesson taken away from the simulation is that in certain cases, short-term rolling forecasts can be more useful than long-term models. Here, the long-term model had an R-squared value of 0.72, indicating that the 24-month model is not an especially useful description of the data. However, the rolling 6-month models routinely had R-squared values of 0.85 and above, and provided a solid basis for creating accurate forecasts. This is a great idea to take into account, but this is highly dependent on the industry, product, or service being modeled. Now, let's look at some final thoughts on forecasting after the simulated case study. Forecasting is a critical piece of successful organizations. However, we cannot expect forecasts to be 100% accurate. Hendry et al. Write that future outcomes are uncertain, so even if very good forecasts are correct on average, they will usually be wrong by some amount. Therefore, the challenge in forecasting within the context of operations management is in mitigating as much error as possible. The focus on developing a reliable model is important, but it is equally vital to eliminate sources of uncertainty and error when developing accurate forecasts. Further information, such as an example of the forecasting model in use and the full results of the simulation, will follow shortly in the appendices. Thank you for listening and have a great day.